Defiant Trump attacks New York judge, his wife and daughter, and calls prosecutors racist in Mar-a-Lago speech in front of fans and family following his historic NY court appearance. But where are Ivanka and Melania?
Melania Trump was glaringly absent from her husband's side on Tuesday as he delivered a defiant speech at Mar-a-Lago, condemning the New York prosecutor and judge who presided over his arraignment. The former president was supported by 3 of his 5 children, Don Jr., Eric and Tiffany. Teenage Barron is rarely seen, and Ivanka Trump, who previously played a pivotal role in her father's political career, announced before Christmas she was playing no part in his new chapter. But Melania Trump's absence was keenly felt, especially given that she was seen at Mar-a-Lago as recently as Thursday. Hours after the indictment was announced, she was by her husband's side in a very public show of strength. The couple dined together with friends at their usual, highly visible table, at Mar-a-Lago. Yet on Tuesday she was nowhere to be seen. Some speculated that her absence was due to the nature of the indictment, and the fact was connected to allegations he cheated on her with Stormy Daniels and Playboy model Karen McDougal. Before the indictment was announced last week, a source told People that Melania, 52, is leading her own life and still feels happy at Mar-a-Lago, but remains angry and doesn't want to hear about the alleged $130,000 in hush money to Daniels. An insider told the magazine, they weren't expecting the indictment, but Melania will support him. That's what she does. They are a family. Another said her focus is on 17-year-old Barron. She is aware of who her husband is and keeps her life upbeat with her own family and a few close friends, one of the insiders added. Donald Trump used his speech to tear into the judge and district attorney in New York who oversaw his arraignment on Tuesday, going after Judge Juan Merchan's family and calling Alvin Bragg a criminal. In a burst of fury during his 25-minute remarks to a packed crowd of family and supporters at Mar-a-Lago, Trump let his frustration with the case shine through. He slammed his legal opposition, despite a warning from Merchan to use his words carefully in order to avoid a gag order. The former president described his foes as a Trump-hating judge with a Trump-hating wife and a family whose daughter worked for Kamala Harris, which drew groans from the crowd. Trump also said the real criminal in the case is Bragg, accusing him of leaking grand jury information. The criminal is the district attorney because he illegally leaked massive amounts of grand jury information for which he should be prosecuted, or at a minimum he should resign, he said, to Cheers. There were some leaks about how many charges Trump would face and related to what matters, but the indictment remained sealed until the former president was officially charged on Tuesday. Trump was told he was free to speak, but with some caution about what he could say. Merchan did not slap a gag order on Trump, as the former president's lawyers feared may happen, but the judge warned during the arraignment on Tuesday that he could hand down a gag order against the ex-president if he makes social media posts inciting violence. A gag order would prevent Trump and his legal team from discussing the case publicly, which would extend to the defendant's favorite form of communicating with his base, social media. It's unclear if Trump skirted that line in his remarks on Tuesday evening. He went after Judge Merchan's daughter and Bragg's wife in his attacks. Lauren Merchan, the judge's 34-year-old daughter, is partner and president of Authentic Campaigns, a progressive digital firm, and worked on several high-profile Democratic campaigns, including for President Joe Biden. Lauren worked as the director of digital for Kamala Harris' 2020 presidential campaign from February 2019 until December of the same year, according to her LinkedIn. Merchan's firm, Authentic, continued working for Harris and then-candidate Joe Biden after Harris ended her unsuccessful campaign for president and joined Biden's ticket. Merchan's firm, Authentic, continued working for Harris and then-candidate Joe Biden after Harris ended her unsuccessful campaign for president and joined Biden's ticket. She concluded her work with a campaign to move to fill the same role at Authentic Campaign's progressive digital strategies firm. She climbed the ladder over 5 years at the firm and is now partner, president and COO of Authentic Campaigns. Bragg's wife Jamila Ponton Bragg had been active on Twitter until recently, posting derisive tweets about Trump. She locked her account after the former president targeted her. In his remarks, Trump tore into the investigations against him, calling them an insult to our country, and he lashed out at prosecutors investigating him and complained about the probes he faces. "I never thought anything like this could happen in America. The only crime that I've committed is to fearlessly defend our nation from those who seek to destroy it," he said. His focus was not as much on the crimes he was indicted for on Tuesday but on every other investigation and alleged wrongdoing he has faced since he entered politics. Trump, 76, went through a litany of crimes he claims have been committed against him, including both impeachments, his false claim that the 2020 election was stolen from him, that the government spied on his 2016 presidential campaign, the FISA warrants against his advisors, and investigations into reports Russia tried to influence the election in his favor. He attacked Bragg, saying the Manhattan district attorney wanted to get him at any cost and this before he knew anything about me. Trump rambled between topics during his 25-minute speech, moving from his presidential campaign talking points, his accomplishments in the White House and what he says President Joe Biden did to harm America. He abruptly ended his remarks after 25 minutes, a short speech by his standards, after spending much of his time complaining about the investigations he still faces. He repeated his argument he is the victim of the weaponization of the legal system and under political attacks from Democrats who don't want to see him return to the White House. Now they have really stepped up their efforts by indicting the 45th President of the United States, he said, as the crowd booed in response. And he slammed the other investigations into his actions, including the state of Georgia's examination of whether he and his supporters tried to illegally overturn the election results there. He also condemned a federal investigation into the classified documents found at Mar-a-Lago. His focus on those two cases could be an indication of the legal fights he is most concerned about. Some experts see the New York case as the weakest of all those Trump faces. Trump launched a long, detailed defense on why he thinks he committed no crime by having his White House records at his Florida home. The Presidential Records Act says all material from a presidential administration is the property of the federal government and must be turned over to the National Archives. There is no criminality under the Presidential Records Act, he said. That is not what it's all about. We were negotiating in very good faith, a proper way in order to return some or all of the documents that I openly, and in very plain sight, brought with me to Mar-a-Lago from our beautiful White House just as virtually every other president has done in the past. He condemned the August trade that revealed he had more documents on hand, despite a subpoena from the Justice Department to return all the material he had with him at his Florida home. Much of his ire was focused on President Biden. Trump is running for another term in the White House but first must win the Republican presidential primary before he can face off against Biden. Trump claimed other presidents from Joe Biden to Barack Obama to Jimmy Carter also took documents. Biden was revealed to have classified documents in his possession but no other former president has. He said the charges against him in that case has absolutely nothing to do with openly taking boxes of documents and mostly clothing and other things to my home, which President Obama has done. The former president claimed Biden has more classified documents on hand than he did, and committed a worse crime. Biden's lawyers say they turned over the classified material as soon as it was discovered. Trump claimed, with no proof, Biden still has documents in his possession. He has 1,850 boxes in Delaware, which he is refusing to give up, Trump said of Biden. There is no evidence of this and the Justice Department has searched both of Biden's Delaware homes, saying no more documents are there. As president I have the right to declassify documents and the process is automatic. If I take them with me, it's automatic. Declassified, Trump claimed, which is false. He pointed out that Biden's classified documents date back to when he was vice president. He had absolutely no right to declassify as vice president. He doesn't come under the Non-Criminal Presidential Records Act. He comes under the very criminal Federal Records Act. unfortunately for him, but it's not going to matter because they don't follow the law, which has very severe penalties. He had classified documents that he took while he was a senator, which is absolutely inexcusable, he said. Trump mentioned the members of his family, those who were there and those who weren't, as he thanked them for their support. Those included Donald Trump Jr. and his fiancée Kimberly Guilfoyle, Eric Trump and his wife Laura, and Tiffany Trump and her husband Michael Boulos. I have son here has done a great job and I have another son here has done a great job, the former president said, referring to Don Jr. and Eric. And Ivanka, he added. And Barron will be great someday. He's tall, and he's smart, but I have a great family and they've done a fantastic job and we appreciate it very much. They've gone through a lot. Trump flew back to his home in West Palm Beach, Florida after he became the first former president to be charged with a crime. He left the courthouse to go straight to LaGuardia Airport, where he boarded his private jet for the flight to Palm Beach International Airport. He left the immediate post-arraignment messaging to his team of lawyers. But the judge in the case didn't issue a gag order against the former president, which his lawyers feared might happen, leaving Trump free to comment on the case. And Trump made his first public comments on the arraignment in his safe space, his private club in Florida, before his supporters, including Representatives Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene, longtime advisor Roger Stone, MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell and failed Arizona gubernatorial candidate Kari Lake. He spoke in the same ballroom where he announced his presidential campaign and where he has made appearances at Saturday night weddings held by members of the club. When he was president, he referred to his estate as the Winter White House. His primetime speech came after Bragg unsealed the 34-count indictment against him, charging Trump with a series of false business statements he described as part of an overarching plan to interfere in the 2016 presidential election. Bragg's grand jury indictment not only referenced the Stormy Daniels matter, but an alleged catch-and-kill scheme involving former Playboy model Karen McDougal and another payoff involving a former doorman at Trump Tower in New York. The charges, categorized as Class C felonies, could lead to an accumulated 136 years in jail if Trump is convicted on all of them. He pleaded not guilty inside the Manhattan criminal court, where his image was captured by still photographers and a court sketch artist. For a man of many words, he spoke fewer than a dozen in court on Tuesday, two of which were an answer to the judge's question about how he would plea. Not guilty, Trump said. After the arraignment, his die-hard supporters gathered under coffered ceilings and crystal chandeliers of Mar-a-Lago's ballroom, with the usual Trump playlist refrains of Elton John and Macho Man. Kari Lake, the failed Arizona gubernatorial candidate who was endorsed by Trump and remains one of his staunchest allies, called the former president's enemies the worst people in the world. I love the man for what he does for our country, but I love him even more when I realize, when you look at the enemies he has, those are the worst people in the world, she told DailyMail.com inside the private club. It looked like a bunch of copy and paste if you ask me, she said of the indictment. Among the early arrivals was MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell, who advised Trump during his last weeks in the White House while the president fought to overturn the election results, another area that has Trump facing legal exposure. He was unimpressed by what was in the unsealed indictment. They didn't do anything back then, said Lindell. In fact, I think he got money from Stormy Daniels. It's disgusting, bringing up a misdemeanor, trying to turn them into felonies. He said he had his own lawyer look at it, and that it's a joke. Lindell continued, a crime covering a crime or some crazy law. It's just a reach. It's weaponization of our government, and it is quite frankly its political motivation. It's all for politics. That's what they've done with our country, FBI, CIA, all of it. Lindell heaped praise on Trump, describing him as a savior of the United States. He has one thing. He wants to save our country, he said. This is part of the battle. He's getting hit. His focus, he loves this country. He loves people, and he will keep going, and he's not going to let this stop him. Is it a distraction? Yes. But that's all he's going to make it. It's a distraction. He's going to use it for a positive, just like his numbers have been up 10 points today. It's going to be a great positive. Also, there was Hogan Gidley, a former Trump White House spokesman who now has no formal role with Trump's team. Polling is more in Trump's camp solidly than anywhere else as far as the country's concerned, said Gidley, who days ago joked that Trump would be able to make the most of a mugshot, if the night were to take and release one. Ultimately, the prosecutors declined to take a photo, although that did not stop Trump's team from mocking one up, and using it on t-shirts they are selling. The American people don't like the weaponizing government, they don't like the politicization of the justice system, said Gidley. I would imagine you're going to hear some information about how important it is to stand up and protect people in this country. In Tuesday's historic hearing, Trump sat in one of the places he seemed to think he would never be, at the defense table in the court of law. The former president sat alongside his defense team in the Manhattan courtroom with his hands folded on his lap and a stony-faced look for the unprecedented hearing. The charges against him are related to a $30,000 payoff to a doorman trying to sell information about a child that Trump allegedly fathered out of wedlock, $150,000 to former Playboy model Karen McDougal, and a $130,000 payment to porn star Stormy Daniels. The prosecution claims the incidents show Trump plotted to buy damaging stories about himself to keep it under wraps and help his chances of winning the 2016 presidential race. It's not just about one payment, District Attorney Alvin Bragg said at a press conference after the hearing. It is 34 business records, 34 false statements and business records. They were concealing criminal conduct. Altogether, the charges, falsifying business records in the first degree, carry a maximum sentence of more than 100 years in prison under New York law, but even if convicted on all charges, it's unlikely Trump would be sentenced to that much time. Each charge is a low-level felony that carries a maximum of 4 years in prison for each count. There was no formal conspiracy charge, but the state of facts released by prosecutors describes how Trump orchestrated a scheme with others to influence the 2016 presidential election by identifying and purchasing negative information about him to suppress its publication and benefit the defendant's electoral prospects. During the hearing, Assistant District Attorney Christopher Conroy argued the payments were part of an unlawful plan to identify and suppress negative information that could have undermined Trump's presidential campaign. The hearing lasted about an hour. The former president was silent as he entered the courtroom and then as he left. He was released on his own recognizance. The next court hearing is set for December 4th. Trump attorney Joe Tacopina, after the hearing, told reporters, "This was not a good day. There's nothing the indictment itself. It is boilerplate. It doesn't allege any federal crime and the state crime that's been violated. It doesn't allege what the false statement is, and it's really disappointing. It's sad and we're going to fight it. We're going to fight it hard." Tacopina said Trump is frustrated. He continued, "He's upset, but I'll tell you what, he's motivated. And it's not going to stop him, and it's not going to slow him down." As part of Tuesday's court process, Trump surrendered, was placed under arrest and fingerprinted. He avoided handcuffs and being placed in a cell but glared at the cameras as he made his way from the booking area to face the judge. He did not have his mugshot taken. And he did not have to pay bail to be released. At the end of the hearing, Trump spoke briefly to his lawyers before turning to the door and walking slowly out, staring ahead and not meeting anyone's gaze with 4 Secret Service agents and 8 lawyers behind him. Ahead of the arraignment, Trump expressed disbelief about his situation. While his motorcade drove him from Trump Tower to downtown Manhattan early Tuesday afternoon, he posted on Truth Social that he couldn't believe this is happening in America. The president didn't speak in public but raised his fist in a gesture to the crowd, and the cameras. Judge Juan Merchan ruled against cameras in the courtroom, depriving the former reality TV star of a made-for-television moment, but allowed still photographers inside to take photos? Trump had been defiant ahead of the arraignment hearing, declaring himself to be the victim of a weaponized legal system and a political target by Democrats who don't want to see him win another term in the White House. The case, based on prosecutor statements and a statement of facts document, appears to involve 3 different payments, 2 of which involve the National Enquirer and 1 of which involves a $130,000 hush money payment that his then-attorney Michael Cohen made to Daniels in the final days of the 2016 campaign. The first involved the Enquirer paying $30,000 to Dino Sajudin, a former Trump Tower doorman, who claimed that Trump fathered a child out of wedlock. The tabloid later determined that was not true. The Enquirer then made another payment to Karen McDougal, Playboy's Playmate of the Year in 1998. She wanted to sell her story of an affair with Trump during the 2016 campaign. The tabloid paid her $150,000 for rights to her story and then suppressed it, a practice known as catch and kill. The third involves the payment to Daniels. Cohen said he made the payment at Trump's direction to ensure Daniels would not go public with her story of a sexual encounter with the married Trump. Trump reimbursed Cohen while he was president, and prosecutors said that is when the fraud occurred. Trump's company falsely classified the repayment to Cohen as legal expenses, but prosecutors say there were no such expenses. The alleged affair with Daniels happened in 2006, long before Trump entered politics, and shortly after his wife Melania gave birth to their son Barron. Trump denies both affairs with both McDougal and Daniels. He also denies any legal wrongdoing. Ahead of the trial, Trump took an aggressive approaching, demanding his supporters rise up and protest and attacking Bragg, a Democrat. And polls show Trump's strategy may be working, as he is more popular than ever with Republican voters and getting a massive political boost as he seeks a second term in the White House. National polls and state surveys in New Hampshire and Massachusetts show voters are still supporting his third bid for president. Trump leads his closest competition, Florida Gov. Ron DeSantis, by double digits. DeSantis originally took a few digs at Trump, saying he didn't know what went into paying hush money to porn stars, but as polls showed Trump's popularity, the Florida governor switched tactics, saying he would block New York if it attempted to extradite Trump. The former president voluntarily went to Manhattan and appeared in court, meaning an extradition attempt was unnecessary. Other Republicans have spoken in Trump's defense, saying the former president is a victim of politics. Additionally, Trump's campaign said it had raised $10 million since news of his pending indictment broke. A conviction would not prevent Trump from running for or winning the presidency in 2024. Defiance and defensive attacks are the cornerstones of any Trump strategy, tactics he has used throughout his business career, his 2 presidential runs, and his time in the White House. It helped him when he was impeached twice by the U.S. House of Representatives, but he was never convicted in the U.S. Senate. The former president faces other possible indictments. The Justice Department is investigating him on 2 separate cases, the discovery of classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago home and attempts to overturn the 2020 election results. Georgia is also examining Trump's attempts to overturn the election results there. The only other U.S. president charged with a crime was Ulysses S. Grant, arrested in 1872 for speeding down the streets of Washington, D.C., in his horse and buggy. He was taken to jail and paid a $20 fine.